This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. Cambodia backs United Nations resolution for Russia to pull out of the Ukraine. The dog meat trade still thrives, and its hub seems to be Siem Reap province. And increased illegal drug shipments are becoming a major concern. But first, more on our main story. Earlier this week, Cambodia backed a United Nations emergency resolution asking Russia to withdraw from the Ukraine. A government spokesman announced Cambodia's backing for the emergency special session of the United Nations General Assembly. The resolution was approved by an overwhelming majority, 141 countries, including Cambodia. Only 5 countries voted against it: Russia, Belarus, Syria, North Korea, and Eritrea. 35 countries abstained, including China, India, Pakistan, South Africa, and Vietnam. The ministry said what prompted Cambodia to vote at the UN meeting is because the kingdom has been through many years of war, and therefore Cambodia is very aware of the devastation caused from warring nations. They went on to say Cambodia will offer support to help the people affected by war and wanted Ukraine and Russia to enter negotiations to end the conflict peacefully. In the context of wars between two different nations, in the past, Cambodia has always backed negotiations towards a peaceful resolution. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres had briefed journalists at the UN headquarters, saying, "We are seeing Russian military operations inside the sovereign territory of Ukraine on a scale that Europe has not seen in decades. It is against the Charter. It is unacceptable. I repeat my appeal to President Putin. Stop the military operation, bring the troops back to Russia, end hostilities in Ukraine now, and silence the guns." Ukraine President Zelensky praised the approval by the UN General Assembly, with an unprecedented majority of votes for the resolution, with a strong demand to Russia to immediately stop attacks on Ukraine. He said, "I'm grateful to everyone and every state that voted in favour. You have chosen the right side of history." A study by a local non-government organisation, 4 Paws, revealed that at least 2 to 3 million dogs are slaughtered every year for their meat, with the main consumers being in Siem Reap province. The study also revealed that the main distributors of the dog meat for the whole country was emanating from companies operating within Siem Reap province. 4 Paws representative Thorn Ratney said that at least 30 million dogs and cats have been slaughtered for their meat. This is a truly staggering figure. She said that the provincial authorities, especially the Department of Agriculture, are now taking sterner measures to stop the slaughter of cats and dogs. Also, the business itself is not as lucrative as it once was. Yesterday, the department had informed all members of the public to stop the slaughter and sale of dog meat, and those caught doing so will be charged in court. They can be punished by law, and anyone caught buying, selling, or slaughtering dogs without permission shall be subject to a fine of 7 million riel, which is approximately $1,700. Animal Rescue Cambodia founder and director Tina Meyer said that the main supply of dog meat in many restaurants are from Siem Reap, and it is often transported to Phnom Penh for consumption. For decades, dogs in Cambodia have played an important role in mine detection, national security, as well as being loyal companions. But despite the special relationships between man and dog, millions of dogs are still being stolen, traded, transported, and slaughtered for their meat every year. The endorsement of any of these laws to protect these animals is most welcome. Priya Sihanouk's provincial governor has urged traffic police to inspect trucks in the province and search for drugs on a more regular basis. It seems that this is becoming the favoured way of bringing illicit narcotics into the country by using established trade routes and secreting the illegal drugs within legitimate cargo. There are often well-publicised drug busts at Cambodia's international airports, but the cargo traffic that crosses the land borders are now also a major concern. And traffic police have a vital role to play, catching those that consume the drugs and not only endanger themselves, but endanger other people. Governor of Priya Sihanouk visited traffic police and urged them to continue to strengthen their law enforcement efforts. During the occasion, the governor spoke with 2 drivers who had been arrested and tested positive for drugs. The governor said that the use of drugs, especially whilst driving, causes accidents and the loss of many lives. Drink and drugs could also be a very strong reason why so many accidents end with the driver fleeing the scene. It is not unusual to hear of fatalities involving a larger vehicle leaving a motorcycle shattered in the middle of the road and the driver of the car or truck are nowhere to be seen. The 2 drivers that were caught under the influence of illicit drugs who spoke with the governor were not imprisoned due to their family situations, but they were made to sign a contract to stop using drugs and to start rehabilitation. They were also banned from driving. The governor called on all traffic police to step up efforts to inspect large trucks for any drugs that may be illegally transporting into the country, and to be aware of drivers under the influence who are not fit to drive. The Chinese embassy has called upon Chinese nationals to strictly adhere to the laws of Cambodia and not to violate them. In a statement issued earlier in the week, they said that all Chinese nationals must respect the laws of the country. An embassy spokesman said that they will continue to support and cooperate with law enforcement agencies in Cambodia to strengthen the effective crackdown on the ongoing issues caused by frauds, online gambling, drugs, and other related crimes committed by Chinese citizens. The Chinese Chamber of Commerce in Cambodia issued a statement on Monday calling for a fight against vicious crimes involving Chinese citizens within Cambodia. They went on to say that recently there have been frequent cases of shooting, kidnapping, and extortion involving Chinese citizens within the kingdom. They added that the methods of some of these criminals are extremely cruel, crossing the line of decent human behaviour, and the atrocities made many boil with anger and aroused the strongest indignation of Chinese compatriots in Cambodia as well as Chinese people at home. They also added that these violent cases are all related to online gambling and telecommunication fraud groups that are based within the kingdom. They have caused immeasurable damage to Cambodia's business environment and seriously affected the confidence of Chinese investors to invest and do business within the kingdom. They said, if the internet gambling groups are allowed to play the bully and do whatever they want, Chinese enterprises that intend to develop in Cambodia will not only be deterred, but also seriously affect the business prospects and confidence of Chinese companies already operating in Cambodia. we take this opportunity to strongly appeal to Chinese enterprises and citizens in Cambodia to observe discipline and obey the law, and do more good deeds that are conducive to enhancing the friendship between these two great nations. A 13-year-old boy was killed in a landmine explosion in Battambang. The boy, identified as Seng Vang Sing, was a young man who was to become a farmer. He was tending to his family cattle earlier this week when one of the cows stepped onto an anti-tank mine. Both the boy and the cow were killed instantly. These anti-tank mines are particularly vicious and have a huge kill ratio, as they can cause devastation to anyone within close proximity when they detonate. Add to that, the Khmer Rouge found that these anti-tank mines they used were often unreliable, and what they would do is stack them one on top of another to ensure that when someone or a vehicle crossed them, they would detonate. This stacking makes the devastation even more horrifying. A big portion of the land in Battambang, which was a frontline battlefield for over 2 decades of the war, remains covered with landmines and other UXOs, all of which have deadly consequences for the area's residents. According to the authorities, from 1979 to 2021, explosive remnants of war have killed, handicapped and injured about 15,289 people in Battambang province alone. That calculates at almost exactly one person every single day in Battambang that is involved in an explosive incident. This situation was highlighted last year when police, together with Cambodian Mine Action Centre, removed 4,000 anti-aircraft shells which were found buried alongside a Buddhist pagoda in the same region. That discovery was made when a group of monks who were staying at the local pagoda were digging to build a new toilet, and they were horrified when they discovered 16 full cases of the unexploded rockets. The threat is still very real, and the sad loss of yet another young life is a terrible reminder of a war that ended long ago. Now it's time to look at our sports news. The big news this week was the sad death of a cricketing legend, Shane Warne, who died at the age of just 52 following a suspected heart attack. The news has shocked the sporting world. Warne was the king of spin, a lovable character whose stellar career was hit by many a controversy. Warne was called up to train initially with the Australian Cricket Academy in 1990. He made his first Test debut for Australia against India in Sydney in 92. In 1994, he made history against England by becoming the first person in 91 years to take a hat-trick in the Ashes Test series. A true cricketing great. Now let's have a quick look at the Premier League in England. And what we see is not an awful lot of change due to championship matches being played. The main battle seems to be between Arsenal and Chelsea for third place. Arsenal have won all of their last 5 games, but Chelsea dropped their last, which means there's now only 5 points in it as to who will claim third position. Further down the table, there's not an awful lot of movement. Wolves, Southampton and my team, Crystal Palace, still all in the same positions. Now let's take a look at the weather and see what we can expect for the upcoming week. And what we see is an absolute roller coaster, slumping down into the 70s come this weekend. But as the week continues, we're up into the 80s and even into the 90s. And that humidity will hit its peak come Tuesday or Wednesday, when we can expect thunderstorms across the country. This has been the Khmer Times News. You can contact myself at the studio by mailing us at ktnewsstudio@gmail.com. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by downloading our app from your app store. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next Saturday for your weekly roundup.